Codega is a guide and a storyteller, escorting you through the night, lighting the way, warding off thieves, ghosts, demons, and other oddities. Along the journey, his companions would often share with him the most curious of stories that he'd record in his Codex. Perhaps you just might find yourself traveling with a Codega and sharing one of yours. Click that like. If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content. All right. So welcome to one of our first lives. Our first lives together. It's me, Rye, and Paranormal Paul from Paranormal Among Us.
How you doing, Rye?
Good. Amongst Us, I was going to say, but no, that's incorrect. That's not right. So Paul, how's everything going?
Good. It's you're in Mexico. I'm up here in the Midwest in St. Louis. It is the middle of February, and I'm walking around in a t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops.
It's like it's you're in Mexico.
Yeah, I almost feel like I'm in Mexico.
And the crazy thing is, it was one of the coldest nights I've ever had in Mexico, like in this location I've ever had in Mexico last night. It was, and in Fahrenheit, I'm not gonna know. It was 11 degrees Celsius. So Fahrenheit, I don't know, but it was probably like 55. We'll say 55. I'm gonna guess 55.
Wow, that was about our high today.
that was our low, and everybody was like, and the world stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So today, go ahead.
I'm saying that's just funny that the different regions like that, it's 50 here, 55, 60 here, and everybody's in shorts and t-shirts, and down there you got your hoodie on, and I'm sure you're gonna have a fire a little later on here.
Exactly. I know it's I'm preemptively putting my hoodie on because it's nice enough that I don't need it, but I know that now that the sun is literally going down, and it's gonna get cold.
Mm-hmm.
Cold for here.
Exactly.
All right. So today's guest we have on is Daniel. He comes all the way from England, just outside of where was it again? Manchester. And
Manchester, yes, it was.
Yes, and he is the founder of True Paranormal. So why don't we let him tell us what that is? And I'm just going to do a little rearranging here. There we go. All right, Daniel, welcome to Codega's Codex of Curiosity, and also to Paranormal Amongst Us.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on the show as well.
Yes. Oh.
Hi.
There he is. We just dropped you. Excellent. Yeah. So I know, Daniel, we've been talking for quite a while. I know when I was a co-host of the Lost Frequency, when I first started out, we were talking, and we were trying to organize something to get you. Well, I was trying to organize something to get you on, but we made it happen. We made it happen finally. So why don't you tell our listeners, our viewers, where you are? Well, of course, I just said that, but tell them a little bit about yourself, Daniel, and also tell them about the True Paranormal.
So I am obviously Daniel, 25 years old. I live near Manchester in England. Through most of my time, I'm working on my blog, which is the True Paranormal, which I set up because I've been interested in the paranormal from a young age, and through the years, I kind of anything like on TV that you see to do the paranormal, I kind of had issues with, as it were, because you have a number of things, like a number of teams who there's lots of iffiness regarding whether or not they fake things. So I was watching all these teams and being like, that seems not quite right. So I decided to set up the True Paranormal and kind of do my own. It started off with me doing my own investigations, get my own equipment, and it's recently become more of a big research thing. And I want the True Paranormal website to end up being a big database, so that any teams at all, like, and if you're new, if you're just if you're starting out, if you're experienced, I want it to be a place where you can go to, if you want to know about a particular location, you can find out about everything, the hauntings, the history, everything. If you want to know about people's experiences, you can go there and find that out. I just want it to be like a good platform in a way for people to voice their experiences so that they don't get lost in videos or on TV. And the same for the places as well. Because when I was younger and interested in the paranormal and things, you'd go online and you try and find out, like even recently searching, oh, what the haunted places are in my area, and it's a lot of top 10 lists. There's no concise thing which I've been able to find where it's like, oh, here's all the haunted places in Manchester, and here's all the details of the hauntings and the history all in one place. You've got to go to loads of different websites to try and find all the bits and pieces. So I aim for the True Paranormal to be this big database of all this knowledge that you could ever want to know as an investigator or just someone who's interested in the paranormal.
That is fantastic. So it was a strive for the truth, because you're just like, are these people really legit, or this kind of all seems a little hokey, we'll say. So you did that, and then you've also just, taken all this information and put it into one place, so everybody has like this encyclopedia of paranormal. That is fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is the aim. Obviously, it's a huge project which is going to take years and years and years to actually create this whole database. But it's a good start at the moment that I've got going. I've got a few locations. I've got a couple of information on investigative teams on there. Recently did a post about the debunker on YouTube called Beardo. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's great. And yeah, it's just all sorts of bits and pieces on there which you could ever possibly want to know if you're interested in the paranormal.
You said you've been
Oh,
interested in paranormal for most of your life, 25 years. What made you get into it in the first place?
So the earliest recollections I can have of kind of being interested in the paranormal. So when I was younger, my parents would watch Most Haunted on the TV. I don't know if either of you know of that program, very famous in the UK. The Most Haunted team is probably the equivalent. I always think of them as the equivalent of kind of Ed and Lorraine Warren for America. So they're kind of, huge investigators here. And they were first on TV in 2002. So they were kind of on telly from when I was a very young age. And my parents took interest in that program, and I took extreme interest in the program, although found it really creepy at the time. And then also the house that I was in, part of the interest stems from the belief of the house that I grew up in being haunted by a couple of spirits. There's a little bit of debate over exactly who haunts it. My dad always thought one spirit there was the previous owner of the house, but another belief was that it was my dad's mum that was haunting it, because shortly after she died, when I was very, very young, there were a few experiences that happened in the house, mostly footsteps on the stairs. I've personally not experienced the footsteps. I think my sister's experienced the footsteps, and both my parents have. So my mum told me a story about when she was in the house. So my dad worked nights, and so it was just me, my mum, and my sister in the house by ourselves. Me and my sister were asleep, and my mum was woken up in the night by the sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs, and they were so clear that she thought someone had broken into the house. So then she started panicking and thinking, oh no, if someone's broken in, they're going to get to the kids' rooms first. So she then kind of plucked up the courage to go to the door and look outside to confront whoever was there, but then there was no one there. So that was a strong experience that she'd had. And like I said, I've never experienced footsteps myself, but I have experienced a couple of things in the house. Namely, I may have seen an apparition in the house, but it's one of those things where it's a weird, when you're kind of half asleep and you don't quite know if it's just kind of you're asleep or you're not asleep. because there was a point when I think it was when I was in teenage years. I had a really cool bunk bed, and I was swapping that out for a hammock. And during which time I'd slept on an airbed while I was waiting for the hammock to arrive. And there was a night I remember where I was sleeping on the airbed, and then I kind of woke up in the middle of the night and kind of looked ahead of me to the end, and then I just saw a woman standing in front of me, just kind of looking down at me while I was sleeping, and I thought, oh, that's a bit weird, and then just went back to sleep, which is why I was like, I don't know if it was a dream, I don't know if I kind of hallucinated it or anything like that. But yeah, it was very, very clearly the figure of a woman stood at the end. And I was like, I don't. That's a bit weird. And like I said, like one of the suspected hauntings there is my dad's mum. So I was like, I don't know if that was her, but it's very strange. And also other experiences in there, potentially hearing my name being called from my parents when they weren't in the house.
Whoa.
Which, yeah,
that would freak me out.
yeah, it's weird because it's not freaky as such as experiencing it. You'd think, oh, that's really good, but it was weird. Whenever these experiences happen, I find it's more puzzling and confusing, and just like, did I imagine that? Rather than, hang on, that's creepy. It's very strange. So when I was younger, again, in the same house, there are times when, like, quite often, I like to spend time in my room. I'm a big fan of Lego, had loads of Lego there. And so I just spent time in my room, just playing with the Lego, listening to music on high volume. And whenever my parents, like, if they were cooking tea or something like that, and they'd go upstairs, well, they wouldn't go upstairs, they'd shout at me, shout to me from the bottom of the stairs, and let me know that the tea was ready to go downstairs. But because my music was really loud, quite often I wouldn't hear them. So they'd then end up going upstairs and then being like, "Oh, you've been shouting for you for ages." So I was like, "Oh, okay, so I didn't hear you." But sometimes you'd be able to hear them over the music, and then I'd pause it and then I'd go downstairs. But on occasion, there were times where I would be listening to my music and I'd think that I'd hear them call, so I'd pause the music and then I'd just wait because I wasn't sure. And I was like, I don't think that I heard them. And I'd rewind the music a little bit as well, just to see if it was something in the song that I'd kind of picked up on and if it sounded similar. Sometimes it would be that. Sometimes I'd be like, oh yeah, I just heard a bit of the song. But then other times I'd be like, no, it wasn't the music. It was completely different from what I heard. So I'd keep listening to my music because I wouldn't hear them shouting anymore. And then I'd hear it again, and it again sounded like either my mum or dad shouting my name. And then I'd pause the music again and think, right, was that them? And I've just kind of missed it. And then I'd be listening, so like, nope, can't hear anything. So I'd again check the music, nope, nothing in the music. So I'd keep playing again, then I'd hear it again. So I'd pause the music and I'd be like, right, I'm going to go downstairs now because it surely must be them and they just can't be bothered going upstairs, something like that. So I'd then go downstairs and I'd have a look around and there'd be no one in the house. And then I'd look outside and the cars would be gone. They'd have gone out shopping or something like that. So there'd be absolutely no one in the house, no explanation as to why I've just heard my name being shouted, which is a bizarre experience, but it kind of left more confusion than fear or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
maybe a little more intrigue, and that's really what's pushed you into this direction of like, I need to know more. Like,
yeah,
what?
absolutely.
That's fantastic. And so what else was there? Any other experiences? Was there and when you're having these experiences, do you ever get any feeling of like a nefarious feeling or a malevolent or a or just neutral? Do you ever have any of those feelings?
So for those particular instances, it was just neutral. It wasn't, at the time I was, I was younger. I didn't necessarily think, oh, paranormal, especially not for the name being called. It was only the potential apparition, and I was like, oh, that might be paranormal. But that wasn't a scary thing. It was kind of just me, let's say, being half asleep, not really acknowledging at the time, oh, paranormal. It was more, I'm just going to go back to sleep. But other times, because there has been a time where me, my sister, and my sister's friend did a Ouija board session in the house, in the living room, because my dad was out, like he went out for a meal or something like that, And so my sister's friend, I think, owned a Ouija board, and we were like, oh, let's do a Ouija board thing. Because it's just an interesting thing to do. We all had an interest in the paranormal, and we all knew that about the house being haunted, or potentially haunted. There's no confirmation. There's just weird experiences there. So like, okay, we'll do the Ouija board thing. So we started doing the session, and it was really weird because the planchette, as far as I can remember, wasn't moving. We had a number of candles lit. One candle in particular was kind of flickering really out of whack with all the other ones. And we're like, that's weird. Don't know what's causing that, because if it's a draft, you'd think that all the other ones near it would also be going.
Right.
Could be a dodgy wick, something like that, but it was strange. And then we heard some tapping on the wall behind the TV, and we're like, that's a bit strange. But again, at the time, I just thought maybe that's next door, maybe they can hear us. I don't know. But then afterwards, I was messaging my sister's friend about it, and because through the session there was something that felt a bit off. So what I did after the session was I decided, right, I'm going to meditate for a little bit, and I'm going to think back to the session and kind of replay it in my head to see if there's anything that I can pick up on after the fact that you wasn't noticed at the time. So I did that, and in the dining room, which is kind of connected to the living room, and you can see through to it, I noticed when looking back through memory, a tall shadow figure stood in the corner. And I was like, that's weird, but that might just be my memory adding that in. So I messaged my sister's friend about it and was like, did you notice anything during the session? Like, was anything there that we didn't discuss at the time? And she said a tall shadow figure in the same corner of the dining room that I thought. And I was like, that's very, very strange. And since I've discussed with my uncle, who has stayed in the house a number of times, and I've discussed it with my mum and things, and my uncle has said that the dining room in particular, if ever he and my aunt stayed in the living room, like stayed over and slept in the living room, he felt he always had to have the light on in the dining room because he felt like there was this kind of dark, oppressive shadow in there. And when telling my mum about the knocking that was behind the TV, and I was saying, oh, maybe it was probably just next door though. She then said, no, it couldn't have been next door because that bit of the house isn't connected to next door. That's just outside. There's nothing that would have been on that wall, knocking on that wall. I was like, oh, that's a really weird experience. But it's always like after the fact, when you look back at these experiences, that you're like, you realize it's weirder than it seemed in the moment. So yeah, that's the only thing that where I'm like, oh, it's potentially oppressive. And another time I've done. So there's an app called Spirit Talker. There's a lot of debate over whether or not it's legitimate. I am on the fence, but leaning more towards it possibly being legitimate. I just think people don't often use it in the right way. So I've done a lot of analysis with the word lists because it records not only the words, but it records the time that they're said as well, which means that you can look through, see how frequently they're all being spoken. And you can kind of work out, right, which ones is it commonly saying, which ones is it not commonly saying, the not common ones. You can try and work out which ones are legitimate based on all of that, because some of them will just be random.
Right.
So I did one of those. I did a word list investigation in the house. I've done a couple in the house, and a common trend in there seems to be two conversations occurring in the word lists. Or at least from what I've looked at. I've not properly analysed them, but from just skimming through the words, it seems like there are two conversations that happen. One, which is something saying, I'm an angel, I'm your friend, a pact, trust me, all of that stuff. And then another thing saying, no, don't trust it, and all of that kind of thing. So I'm just like, that's very interesting, because that implies that there's a good spirit there, and then a not so good spirit there.
Or is it kind of like that old riddle where like there's one guard who always lies and one who always tells the truth, and which one is which?
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. So it's like, do you trust the one that's saying trust, or do you trust the one that says not trust? Because then it's stuff like whatever's saying I'm an angel, I'm not trusting. You shouldn't trust anything saying that, I don't think. Because it also says like I'm a friend, I'm a relative. that side of it seems to be throwing anything and everything possible to try and get you to trust it. I'm just like, that seems a bit suspicious.
Yeah.
So that could be
It's like
the
the
whatever.
man in the van with free candy, right? Come, I got some free candy for you.
Exactly.
Ah!
Exactly. But it's an interesting place because just around the back of there is a fire station that used to be a graveyard and used to be kind of a church and things. So it is kind of built very close to that area. And during, I think it was World War II, a bomb was dropped in that area, which did end up killing a little girl at the time. So there's a house in that area which is said to be haunted by that girl as well. So it is an area that is kind of has a reputation for being haunted, and to be fair, the whole town is it kind of has that reputation because it's very old and not much has really changed about it. It's not had much development at all, aside from a couple of new houses being built and obviously shops changing over time. But the actual buildings themselves are all the same. And there's kind of some ruins and things in the area as well from like old mills that have burnt down. So it's an interesting area to have grown up in, with all sorts of stories of hauntings and things.
I have one question again. What was the name of that app? Just so our viewers, maybe if they want to try it out. And I'm taking your, I'm taking your word for it because you seem to be someone who has got a level head. You really want to look through things thoroughly, especially when you're saying, you're on the fence of it, but you're leaning more onto it's believable. And you're dissecting these word lists. So what was the name of that app again? And is it a free app or do you have to subscribe to it?
So it's called Spirit Talker. I do believe you have to pay for it. I
Hmm.
cannot remember the price. It
Okay.
may have been just a couple of pounds when I bought it. It may have increased since then. I don't know. But it does seem like a more legitimate app. Purely like the reason why I've stuck with that one in particular is because you can analyze it. So it's not like your classic Spirit Box where it's shouting out all bits of snippets of things and you don't have a clue what it's accurately said. It is something that is a random word generator, but you can it the way it works is it analyzes stuff in the environment to then throw out these words. So there are random words thrown out, but it's taking readings from the environment to throw out other words, and it's thought that spirits can manipulate those environmental readings to put out
Is,
specific ones. That is
is that
it.
the
That is
okay?
the app. Yes,
So in
Spirit
the
Talk.
United States, it's $3.99.
So probably Mexican pesos. It's probably 100 pesos. I'm going to say 100 pesos.
This is like the UN of podcasts. We got Mexico, we got United States, and we got England over here, all over the place.
Excellent, excellent. So what is there so do you go on investigations yourself? Have you gone on like investigations? That's not something you try to do regularly or
So when initially setting up the True Paranormal, it was something that I had in mind to do. But investigations, one, it's getting there. Two, it's money. um, so any places that I've kind of investigated, it's with the Spirit Talker app. It's been kind of unofficial investigations. Is probably how best to put it. Where I've just been visiting locations while on holiday with family, and I've just had this app out in the background. And just any opportunity to have the app out, I've done that. But otherwise, it's been investigating here. Um, so with here, I believe that everywhere probably is haunted in some way. So I don't have the typical view of everywhere has to be this Victorian woman floating downstairs or something like that. I think that throughout life, you exert energy, and in the afterlife, you can go back to those places and kind of feed off of that energy that you've left behind in all of these places, and kind of use them as kind of energy wells, is how I refer to them. So I believe that everywhere that, like anywhere anyone's laughed or cried or just experienced emotion, is potentially a place that is going to be haunted by that person after they've died. So with this particular house, this is not a house that is said to be haunted. It is not somewhere that I've experienced things in from day-to-day basis, which has made me think, oh, let's investigate. It's a place where I'm like, this is what I would refer to as neutral. So where it isn't necessarily somewhere you're gonna hear about hauntings, but if you investigated it, you might get something interesting happen. So I have done investigations here, and interesting things have happened, which could be down to coincidence, but it always seems to be around when I'm investigating it that it happens. So, for example, there is a cellar in this house, and when I first started doing investigations, I would set up a camera in the cellar just to film the cellar, see if anything was captured. And I've got loads of Lego just stacked up in the cellar. And I've gone up and down many times and no incidents or anything like that. Shortly after I started filming, the camera has caught a light up bear flashing untouched in the cellar, which has to be touched to be activated. It's caught a cat ball rolling off of a box and falling on the floor. It's caught a whole stack of Lego boxes falling.
Wow.
And yeah, it's caught, although that might have been slightly off camera, but you can see and hear it fall. Also, a faint tapping sound has been heard on there as well. And when setting up the camera, because there was a point where my uncle was like, "Oh, you should film it on the stairs to see if anything's caught on the stairs, because obviously it's where people do up and down." So I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." So I did that, and then walked up, and then closed the door, and then because Mum lives here as well, one of her herb bottle things that were kind of on a ledge then fell off, which was like, is that the vibrations of the door? I don't know, because I've been up and down so many times and open and close that door so many times. I'm just like, that's very coincidental that it has chosen the time that I'm filming for it to have fallen. And it's like the door may have opened by itself as well, because there was a point where I was walking through the house and then just saw the door was open. I was like, said to Mum, "Have you left the door open in the cellar?" And she's like, "No." And I was like, "Well, I don't think I have. I can't remember having done."
And
So that was strange as well. But it always happens around the time that I'm doing investigating frequently. It's like there are points where, because I'm interested in Ouija boards and things, because that's a lot of
really,
information. Like a lot of stories often revolve around Ouija boards, and I've done a whole post about the history of them and found out that it was when The Exorcist was released that suddenly they were deemed evil and tools of the devil and things like that. So it's all very interesting. So I got a Ouija board and I've done a number of investigations with that Ouija board here.
really.
Yeah, and I've seen a few things because of that, which is weird, and had weird results with the Spirit Talker app as well while doing those sessions. So the most, like the biggest thing with the Spirit Talker app that I've had here while doing a Ouija board session is it was about 3:15 in the morning. Because I was like, right, I'm going to do Ouija board 3 in the morning. That's the time it's all supposed to kind of kick off with the paranormal. Let's see if I can get anything. And I had the Spirit Talker app out. Wasn't holding it at the time. It was resting on a surface away from me in order, because vibrations are thought to affect the readings. So I put that over to the side so I wasn't affecting it. And so I sat there with the Ouija board. Nothing has ever happened regarding the planchette moving with the Ouija board ever in any of these sessions. It's always been stuff around me that's happened. And in this particular session, it was about 3:15, and suddenly the Spirit Talker app says, "Hear my footsteps," and then it says approach, and then it says approach, and then it bang on 3:30, it says the devil is here. And I was like, that is some coincidence.
Wow.
Yeah, and from that, that's the big experience where I'm like, with the Spirit Talker app, that's what baffles me about it, because I've done over 100 investigations with that at this point, or at least I've had it on for over 100 times. For about an hour each time is what I try and aim for. I have never had anything, and I think that was Halloween night as well that I did that investigation, and I've never had anything so clear in terms of a sequence which is clearly saying, where they're all kind of somewhat related. Because a lot of times with stuff like this, people will say, "Oh, they're not related." You're just kind of making that be related to your investigation. But those 4 words it all sounds very related. And for the timing as well,
Yeah.
the Final Fantasy said bang on 3:30 in the morning, Halloween night. Well, it's potentially Halloween night. It was bizarre. And then other times I've done the session, like Ouija board stuff, I've seen so to the left of me now is door into the kitchen with the stairs going up the side of it, that wall. And out the corner of my eye, I've seen what looked like a child, which was pale, like white face, bald, huge, like round black eyes and round black mouth, kind of peering round the corner at me. And then I was looking at it, it disappears.
This is in your kitchen?
Yes, yeah.
I got a question before we go too far with that one.
Yeah, cool.
Black eyes, like completely black eyes?
Yes. So as if it was just like hollow skull type, black eyes, completely black.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Is
so
that
not
kind of
like-
fall into like black eyed children kind of
Yeah, I've seen an image recently shared by a group called the Cornish Ghost Whisperers, who claim to have caught a picture of a black-eyed child. And I looked at that image, and I'm very skeptical when I look at photos. I'm always like, oh, that's probably pareidolia or things like that. Seeing faces in walls and whatnot. But I looked at that and I was like, you know what? That really is not far off what I saw regarding that. And I told that experience to my uncle, and he said, "Oh, it sounds a bit like an alien." And I was like, "I don't think it's an alien. That would be a bit weird, a bit odd if there's just randomly an alien like peering around the stairs." But in terms of it, I saw that image shared, and I was like, "That is really close to what I saw. Like bald, white face, black eyes." The only difference is that in that photo, it didn't look like a child. I thought that photo looked much older. But yeah, it was very strange for that one in particular. Yeah.
Now, getting back to when you said the devil was approaching when you were using the Ouija board, did you did it feel cooler, or did the air around you feel different?
No, not that I can remember. That's the weird thing about these experiences. It's always kind of like one thing in particular. It's like there's been a time doing the Ouija board session where I've had a bag on a fairly flat surface in the kitchen. It's been there for like 3 hours. Again, Ouija board session at like 1 in the morning. And then suddenly it falls off during that session. And I was like, that's really weird timing for it to have fallen at the moment that I'm doing this session. It's been there a couple of hours. So I think there's potentially something to do with the cellar. And there's a weird gravel pit in the cellar as well, which I know nothing about. But when we moved in, straight away, the first thing I saw when I looked in the cellar was in the middle. It's just a weird gravel pit where it looks like someone's dug up the floor and then filled it in with gravel. So it's like
that's where
ominous.
that's where grandma is.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and what's crazy though is that it's kind of like these ghosts are waiting for your cue. It's like, oh, camera's on, let's do this. Which is great.
It's very strange. And it's like in here, like occasionally I have a nap on the chair in here, and I've heard like while asleep again, but awake enough to repeat it to myself, I've heard a little girl singing 4 distinct notes of a song, and there is no small child that you can usually hear. There's no little girl. So I just kind of heard that, and I woke up and was like, that's weird. Did I dream that? And then I sung it back to myself. I was like, no, I'm awake enough to have remembered it and sung it back to myself. So that was a weird experience, which might be because through my interest in the paranormal, I've also bought a few allegedly haunted dolls. One of which does have a girl apparently attached to it who likes to sing. So when that happened, I was like, oh, I don't know if that's because of that. But yeah, and other things I've seen potentially a shadow of a child stood by the front door, and I've also, which is the most interesting one that I've seen, I'd say, aside from the potential black-eyed child, is while doing a Ouija board session. Usually I do it in this room, sitting in the middle of the floor, candles lit, the whole lot. Dark room aside from that. But then again, corner of my eye behind me, so it would have been kind of roughly where I am now. I saw a tall figure standing there, which tall shadow figure, thin, looked like it was wearing a long black coat. But the most interesting detail about it was these spikes it had on its shoulder. So it had kind of one spike on each shoulder, just sticking up
Wow.
really tall. I was like, that's really weird and really interesting. Again, looking directly to it, it disappeared. But
Did it have a
it was
top hat?
no, no, because I've done research into, like, I've tried googling what was it I've seen, and obviously you've got the Hat Man, as one thing, which top hat, but everything that I looked at, I could not find anyone having reported this figure with spikes on its shoulders. But then I started looking through Google Images at various things, and then I was like, because then I saw an image of a demon. I don't like discussing angels and demons because I myself I'm not religious, but I feel like one thing at the moment with the paranormal is a lot of people often throw in demon when investigating. But with this particular instance, looking at the images of things, I saw an image of this demon, um, and I was like, you know what? If that was a shadow, if that was a silhouette, the wings on its back would look like a spike on either shoulder if it was a
Yeah.
silhouette. And I was like, that's very interesting because I'm not particularly a believer in angels and demons. I believe that there are positive spirits and negative spirits, and that these are somewhat misinterpreted as angelic or demonic. But yeah, but with that particular one, with the spikes, I was like, that does seem like it would be silhouettes of wings, because of just how tall they were and how it was just one spike on each shoulder.
Right.
Um, yeah, it was
When you
weird.
were first describing it with the long trench coat, I was thinking it was going to be the Hat Man, but you
Yeah,
know,
Of course,
yeah,
me
it
too.
wings it.
Me
Yeah,
myself
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
yeah, with no hat, which was weird because, like you say, if it had a hat, it would be the Hat Man, but it's not,
yeah.
because no hat. So it was very strange.
Daniel, I got a question. Jumping way back here to energy wells. Can you
Yeah.
go a little bit further into that? Because that was really interesting. I liked your take on that.
Yeah, so that's just a theory I've got. I know there are, in a way, theories out there similar. I don't know if there's anything exactly the same. The one theory that springs to mind, which is somewhat similar, is that of stone tape theory. So stone tape theory, if anyone doesn't know, is kind of the thought that through life, various events will happen. So you could have an event where someone slams the door, for instance, and then the environment will kind of remember that. It will soak into the walls, and eventually it will kind of replay the event. So it's a theory used to explain, if you hear a door slam but no door has slammed, you'd then say, oh, stone tape theory is attributed to that. So it kind of links in with residual hauntings as well, where the haunting itself isn't particularly aware of yourself or aware of their environment. They're just replaying events. My theory on energy wells kind of, in a way, links a little regarding stuff being thrown out into the environment during an event. Um, so I think there are different kinds of energy, and I believe that, in terms of people, you've got the body and then you've got the spirit. Um, and both things require different types of energy. So the body, you need food, you need drink, that kind of thing to replenish that. You can think of it in a way a little bit like a computer. You've got hardware and you've got software. So the body is the hardware, the spirit is the software. Both things need different things to sustain themselves. The spirit, I believe, relies on emotion a lot and that kind of energy. So it's kind of like links in a little bit with like introverts and extroverts, where some people like to spend time with other people and have a laugh with those people, and they'll get energy from that situation, and they'll feel more upbeat and all right because of that. Other people don't like that; they like to just spend time by themselves, reading a book, doing something that they enjoy to then get that energy, or listening to music. That's another way. And I actually thought the same thing regarding coma patients, because there are some coma patients who are in a coma and they don't wake up and no one knows why. But it is known that if you talk to the coma patients, if you play music to the coma patients, that helps them wake up. So then I started questioning, like, is that a spiritual problem rather than a physical problem? I could be like completely off with all of this. I do not know the medical science behind it all, but I then start thinking, what if it's a spiritual thing? And that's why playing music to them and talking to them helps, because it's giving them that, in a way, spiritual energy, and that kind of emotional energy. So I started thinking about how throughout life go through all these experiences, and you put out all this energy in the environment, probably without realizing it. So if you're so people talk about attachments to places and to objects, that they're things which you have exerted a large amount of energy to. Um, so I don't think that it's attachment as in you are stuck with that thing forever, because that I think is a common thought with the paranormal, that it's like you hear about locations, so you might think that there's let's take for instance James the First. You might say that he haunts the Tower of London, and there's be a thought that he is there. That's where he has spent a good portion of his life. He is there forever now. Like, but I don't think that's the case. I think that he might sometimes be there if he spent time there and gone through emotion there. But he'll also be wherever else he has left energy. He'll be, and it explains why some places are sometimes haunted and why some places sometimes are not haunted. Because it might just mean the spirits aren't there in that moment, because they are elsewhere in the world, getting their energy from these energy wells that they've left behind through life. It's a very kind of loose theory at the moment, which I need to do a lot more research into. But that is the thought where I think it could explain why some places are sometimes haunted by one person and then they're haunted by this other person, and why multiple, like for instance, James the First could be seen in multiple locations, but seem somewhat conscious at the same time, and not like a residual haunting where it's just a replaying of events.
I mean, it seems like a very reasonable explanation for it. Yeah.
I believe so too. I think it's very reasonable and very thought out. And of course, none of us really know, and all we have are theories. But I think you have a great theory.
Thank you. I'm glad it sounds like I might be onto something. You never know when creating theories. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, in the human world, we can't be in two places at once. How could it really be different in the spiritual world?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Like the spiritual world, does time really exist? Can we can exist simultaneously here and there at the same time? I think everything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Excellent. And I know you're saying residual haunting. Like I am positive in my house that I was working in, I had I was in the process of renovating my basement, and I have a lot of paranormal experiences. And as I'm working in the basement, out of the corner of my eye, I can see a gentleman working behind me. And of course, I'm the only one in the basement, or was I? But this gentleman, my house was only built in the 1970s, and he was dressed as if he was from the 1970s, like a carpenter. He had these jeans on that were pulled a little higher with a belt. He had a plaid shirt that was tucked in. These larger wire rim glasses, kind of like sandy blondie hair, just kind of just hanging down like this. And he looked a mix of Alec Baldwin from Beetlejuice and I don't know the actor's name, but the scientist guy from the original Stargate. You put those two guys together, and this was this guy. He was in behind me working away, and I'm like, okay, I guess I got someone helping me. That's nice. Awesome. So, go ahead, Paul.
Daniel, do you have a favorite place to investigate over in England?
A favorite place to visit. My favorite place, like a place I'd really like to investigate, is Alton Towers. That's one place I'd absolutely like to. It's a theme park in, I think, Staffordshire, in England. So it's not that far away from where I live. It's about an hour drive, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fantastic place, big theme park, one of the biggest theme parks in the UK. And in the middle of it is this big manor house, which a lot of people refer to it as a castle, which is understandable because it's kind of old stone building, but it is a big manor house. And it's reported to be extremely haunted. Even the kind of gift shops and things in like around the area are said to be haunted by kind of old staff members who used to work at the park and things like that. So I'd absolutely love to investigate there, because it is said to be extremely haunted. But I feel like not many people have investigated it. So that's definitely one place I'd like to go to investigate.
Well, we have Krista on from Blondes and Brews. She's just sent us a message here. You should connect up with her. They're a fantastic paranormal group here in where are they located, Paul?
Krista is just, I believe, in around St. Charles area here in Missouri, just north of St. Louis, where I'm at. And then Brandy is down closer to Arkansas, I believe. We're all in the Midwest.
And yeah, you should definitely, with all the work that you're doing, I definitely could see you guys, working together or passing on some information. They're fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Definitely. So now in the future, if you could, let's not talk UK, let's talk in the world. If you could go anywhere to investigate any place, what is maybe, we'll say top one, but maybe there's a top three. And by all means, let us fill us in.
So top place I would like to go to, which I think anyone who knows paranormal and things would probably like to go here, the Warren Museum, Ed and Lorraine Warren's museum that they've got in Connecticut, just because it's this big, in a way, pot of all these haunted items that they just collected over the years. You potentially, like I say, with my theory on energy wells, Ed and Lorraine themselves may end up being haunted there. Because they'll have spent a lot of time there. But you've got all these objects there. Like you've got a lot of stuff which apparently has demons connected to it. You've got the Annabelle doll, you've got Satanic Idol, you've got Shadow doll, you've got all these things, and they're all famous cases as well. And it's interesting because that's where you start going into the extreme stories of the paranormal, of people kind of, I mean, they're not brilliant stories, but they're stories of people being injured and things like that by it. Which always intrigues me because here I am kind of doing Ouija board sessions, calling out to all sorts in these sessions, seeing if I can get activity to kick up, but then you've got all these objects where apparently activity has kicked up, and I'd be interested to investigate that just to see what would happen if I went there. I know they probably would not let me in with my methods, with what I've done with like Ouija boards and things. They're very, very strong believers of the demonic and things there. So yeah, if I went there, I'd full on be calling out all sorts of stuff. But yeah, that's probably the top place I'd like to go to, even if it's just to walk around and experience the location. I'd like to go there.
That would be awesome. I know. What about you, Paul? If you had a place you could go, Paul, where would you go?
Oh wow. I don't remember where exactly it is, but oh man, I just blanked out.
I'll take the lead if you think that.
Go.
So for me, there is a place in Mexico. Well, there's two places in Mexico that I would really like to go. One of them is the Zone of Silence. It is slightly haunted, but it's just this fascinating area. Where is it? In Durango? I think it could be in Durango. But it's this whole area that has kind of like reduces all of your like cell phones, calls don't work, communication doesn't work. Even if you try talking to someone, it kind of like deafens everybody. And another place, of course, would be just outside of Mexico City, would be the Island of the Dolls. I don't know if anybody's heard of that. That is the creepiest place ever. What it is this caretaker of this island found this girl about 10 or 11. She had drowned. And so he took it upon himself to appease her spirit by putting up a doll hanging from a tree. Started like that. Then it just kind of manifested more and more dolls, and candy was placed to appease the spirit. And whoops, excuse the loud vehicles going by, but the irony of it, or the sadness, is that he ended up drowning in these canals as well. So now this island is like a homage to them. and it is just covered, littered with the creepiest dolls you've ever seen, tied to, hanging from any place on this island. Yeah, very, very creepy.
Okay,
I
so
think
I got mine.
Okay,
I had to look it up because I was blanking on the name. You got me. It is Bran Castle. That's Dracula's castle. I would love to go there and see that. I saw somebody, I think Ghost Adventures or whoever went there one time, and that just looked fascinating to me. But I'll probably never make it that far. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So Daniel, where do you see yourself like in the future here now? Where is this taking to you, other than keep collecting research, but where do you see yourself going with this all?
Well, hopefully I do aim to go into investigations. So I'm hoping to, when the blog progresses and when getting a good backlog of posts and things, I want to properly be able to sit down and analyze word lists and investigate, go out and investigate proper places and things rather than just here. And yeah, that's what. And I'd like to go back to Carisbrooke Castle is one particular place I'd like to go to investigate because I had a really, really strong experience there. That's where my strongest experience has been. Where there was a well, there's a keep in that castle, and loads of steps going up to the roof of it, and there's a well in the top of this roof. And so I went up there, and I quite like looking down wells just to see how far down it goes and things. And there were a couple of people up there at the time, and I was like, well, I'm not going to stand here peering down this well while there are people there. It'll be a little bit strange. So I just looked out over the view, and then the people left, and then I was like, right, I'm going to look down this well now. And I was looking down this well, and as I was looking down, the closer my eyes got to the water level, the stronger I had this image in my mind of a woman falling down the well. And again, the closer my eyes got to the water level, the more I felt like I would see a face in the water looking back up at me. And that's the most frightening experience I've had regarding the paranormal because of how intense it all was. And then I was like, right, this is too creepy. I didn't look at the water, I just left. And kind of went back.
Oh, come on! That you had to have looked, or you should have put a camera over and just click, click, click. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, but I knew nothing about the castle or anything at the time because that's on the Isle of Wight, which is I think just south of England. And so I knew nothing about it. And then I went online afterwards, just because it was such a strong experience. It's like surely that has to be something. And then I searched about it, and then I found stories that people have reported of, apparently a woman has fallen down a well in the castle, and apparently people have reported seeing a face looking back up at them from the water.
Wow.
But the interesting thing was, it was the wrong well, which makes it even more interesting. There's a second well in the castle, which is on the ground level, and apparently it's that well which the woman's fallen down. People reported seeing her face, but it was this other well on the top of this keep where I experienced that, and so that was all very strange. Again, because of the difference in detail, yet the knowing the points of woman falling down and face looking back up, even though it was a different well.
But that being said, though, the wells are probably connected to the same water source as well. So, whether she's fallen down that well or this well, it's I think it's a mute point. I think it's exactly the same, though. That's really cool that you got that confirmation of that as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Paul, do you have any more questions or anything?
I can't think of anything. Just make sure everybody goes to check out the True Paranormal. Those listeners on my YouTube page, our channel, you can go on my Facebook page. Actually, both of our pages we have. True Paranormal's been Daniel's been sending stuff to us. A lot of very fascinating information, like you said earlier. Very fascinating. Good to read through all that stuff.
I agree. And so you can be fine there. Also, in the description of this video of this live itself, I put in all his links. So he's got all his links. He has his blog. He has Instagram. Do you have Twitter as well? I thought as well.
Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, all the stuff.
Perfect. Yes. So it's all in there. So whoever is watching or watching, even though we're not going to be live anymore, go check out True
Yep.
Paranormal. And so, Daniel, do you have anything else you want to finish off with before we call it a night?
No, I don't think so. Unless you've got anything else you'd like to ask.
I I I think I'm good. I think we asked everything, and I definitely want to thank you, Daniel, for
Yeah.
because he's in England and it is about 1 a.m. right
Around
now.
1 a.m.
So
over there, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I definitely want to say thank you for staying up late to make this work.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
appreciate
for
it, Daniel.
inviting me.
Awesome. All right, Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So, Paul, what do you think of that?
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Always good to talk to somebody in a different country, a different continent from where we're at, and hear their take on things. And England or the UK has such a rich history that goes way back.
Yeah.
And I would think it's just amazing over there to ghost hunt and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And he's doing his part. I liked
yeah,
his attitude that he's, not, I don't want to say skeptical, but like, questioning everything. And I think that is what we all have to do. You shouldn't run blindly in and believing everything. It's like to look at everything
exactly.
thoroughly and just dissect it all. And that's exactly what he's doing. And he's providing a platform and I would say a service to all of those, especially in the UK who are interested. Go check out his stuff, and he's compiling everything, which is great. I just interviewed another guest from Australia who's doing the same thing with UFOs. He's compiling everything to be found in one
Oh,
place
awesome.
because every like Daniel said, everything he looked for was just a top 10. He's like, no, I just want to,
Mhm.
maybe like a Google Maps search, Google Maps most haunted haunted areas in my area.
Yeah, that's incredible. I one-stop shop. I like that.
Exactly. All
Yeah.
right. So with that, I just want everybody to make sure, if you're not subscribed to my channel or to Paul's channel, please go do that. Hit that like, leave us a comment, and it really helps. And also make sure you go check out Daniel's stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. I look forward to our next adventure together as we navigate the mysteries that lie ahead. Until our paths cross again, keep your curiosity wandering and ensure the light remains lit. Click that like. If you're new here, subscribe and have the bell hit for notifications to stay up to date on all of the new content.